Thank you for listening to WZNC LP Bethlehem, North Country Community Radio, 99.9 FM, and streaming online at nococommunityradio.org. You're tuned in to North of Normal. I'm your host, Amanda McKeen. My mission is to create an unfiltered, human-centered space where local leaders, business owners, and change makers share their stories, perspectives, and passions, not to promote, but to connect. North of Normal celebrates what makes our North Country community rich, real, and worth rooting into. We're live every Tuesday from 10 to noon here at NCCR on Main Street in Littleton. And today's guest is Laurie Butson. Laurie, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we've got a lot to talk about because there's a lot I don't know about you. I'm very excited to finally sit down with you.
I know you made me a little nervous a few minutes ago when you were like, I have so many questions for you.
It's interesting that questions make us nervous, right?
Yes.
What do you think that is?
Well, I think it's like just the uncertainty of knowing what the question is and then
if you can answer it or not.
If and how you're going to answer it.
Yeah, I hear you completely.
But I'm a huge fan of questions.
Good.
So I'm ready.
Good. Well, I got to tell you that every single guest that has sat in that chair shows a level of courage that I don't think people fully understand.
Yeah.
I didn't fully understand it until early in December when I interviewed myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wait, I feel really nervous right now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it's that, not planning your conversation and knowing that you have to be on the spot ready.
Yeah.
I think that kind of creates some nerves.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Laurie, thanks for being here. I've known you, I think, since last spring-ish.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That would make sense. Yeah.
Do you remember where we met?
I think at the Crumbum?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is where we met.
Yeah. Yep. And, but we had seen each other before in yoga classes, but never had made the connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had seen you at Dust Off Yoga.
Yep.
We never talked.
Nope.
And then I was meeting Shanna for coffee at Crumbum. And she said hi to you.
Yes.
And then she introduced me to you.
Yes, I remember. I probably had my dog Bennett with me.
And your husband.
Oh, and my husband. Okay, good.
Jared, right?
Jared, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, I do remember that.
Yeah. So we really, I haven't seen you too often since then. The few times I have been the mental health awareness fairs.
Yep.
Is that what they're called?
Yep.
And those were initiatives that you started to kind of bring everybody together to help our community understand where the resources are. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Do you want me to tell you a little bit more about that?
Please.
Yeah. So the fair, the actual fair where we've brought together, a number of local providers. That's kind of just one part of the overall initiative. And what the overall initiative is about this time last year, I had this crazy idea of what if we tried to do something at the community level to bring more attention to well-being and mental health. So where that idea came from was back when I was in the corporate world. I oversaw learning and development, well-being, employee engagement, diversity and inclusion. And so those were types of things like bringing awareness, whether it was to mental health or different aspects of diversity and inclusion or just learning in general. Those were things that I was doing on a daily basis in the corporate world. And I left there a few years ago. And so I had this crazy idea of what if we tried to do something similar at the community level? And that's really where it started. And so what we did was planned for last May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, planned a variety of different activities. So the fair that you started out with and mentioned, that was one of over 20 different events that we held. And like you said, the goal was really to, and continues to be, to bring attention, awareness, education, action to overall mental health and well-being, and try to just make it more of a normal, natural part of our community and conversation that we're having at the community level.
Okay. So we're going to take a step back because I want to understand how you arrived here. Like you've lived quite a bit of life at this point. What was Laurie Butson like as a little girl? Where were you? What were you up to? What did you care about?
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, we're going to start back there, and then we're going to get back to why this now.
Okay, very cool. So who was Laurie Butson when she was a little girl? Well, first of all, she was Laurie Parsons.
Oh, okay.
And I grew up in New Hampshire. I grew up in Keene, New Hampshire.
Oh, Keene is lovely.
Yep. My family, my brother and his family, my parents still live there, so it's lovely to continue to visit there. But yeah, I grew up there, went to school there through high school. Interestingly enough, if I think about like what I thought I wanted to do, was I thought I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
And funny enough, I don't know if I want to say how old I am, but many decades later, I am doing that.
Yeah.
Just not necessarily in a traditional educational setting.
Yeah.
Showing up to school every day.
Right.
I'm teaching in a lot of different ways. So grew up in Keene. I went to college in Vermont. I went to St. Michael's College in Vermont. And loved that. Played field hockey and softball in college. Studied business and psychology in college.
So you're always drawn to psychology?
Always drawn to psychology.
What do you think that pull was about?
I just love the aspect of better understanding people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like as simple, that's probably as simple as I could state it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did your parents do?
My mom was a preschool teacher.
Okay.
Yep. And then my dad had a lot of different, he was in the business world, for a long time, sales, business, spent later years in the construction industry, which is a really crazy shift.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely didn't necessarily get, my passion for quote unquote teaching and psychology from my parents necessarily.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you went to college for business and psychology.
Yep.
Then what?
Then I actually worked in special ed for 2 years.
Back in Keene?
In Peterborough, New Hampshire, which is like 45 minutes from Keene. So I graduated college, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I moved back home, and ironically, so this is going to give away a little bit of my age, even though I'm not going to say it.
Okay, we'll be very careful.
I was looking for ads in the newspaper.
Oh, dun, dun, dun.
And came across, looking for jobs, and came across a field hockey coaching job.
Oh, nice.
So that is what I actually applied for at the high school that I ended up working at. And my parents were like, you are not just going to coach field hockey. You need to figure out something else after graduating college. And so, ironically, the funny story is the person that hired me ended up being my father-in-law. He wasn't at the time. Yeah. So he was the assistant principal and athletic director at the high school. So he hired me to coach field hockey. And I said to him, I think I said, my parents need me to get another job. They're not allowing me to just do this. And so he helped me find a job working as a special ed aide. So that's kind of how it all happened. So I spent 2 years coaching field hockey. I added coaching basketball the second year, and spent those 2 years at the high school working in special ed and loved it. I actually, funny story, after the first year, I ended up applying to, I can't even remember what it was, but it was like some sort of secondary education program through the state of New Hampshire to try to get certified in special ed. Mm-hmm. And crazily enough, I wasn't accepted. And I was devastated at the time.
They rejected you?
They did. I was like, wait, what? Why are you rejecting me? But I'm a huge believer, especially with retrospect. And that's kind of a disclaimer that everything does work out the way that it is meant to. That I think is really hard. And I get really frustrated sometimes when people tell me, like, especially my husband, when he tells me in the moment, like, you know that everything works out the way that it is meant to. And I do truly know that, but I'm really good at being able to look back. Sometimes I'm not as good about that in the moment.
Yeah.
But I look back and of course that wasn't what I was meant to do. And that decision was made for me, which was wonderful because then, I kind of launched in a different direction after that.
Interesting. Before we find out what that direction was, coaching is its own calling, and I dabbled in it a little bit. So I'm curious what you remember learning the most in your early days of coaching.
Coaching sports.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Let me think about that.
I mean, I remember having more issue with parents than I did with the students.
Yeah.
So that was a shock for me that nobody kind of prepared me for.
Yeah, it's funny because I do think and I think that's even prevalent today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly an issue, for sure. Like in just the youth sports world in general. I don't remember that actually. I don't remember, having issues with parents. I think probably the biggest thing that I can think of is the translation, like, of being really good at something and then having to teach others how to do that.
Yeah.
Right? You can't go out on the field and do that for those teenage girls, or the basketball court. Yeah. And so I think, it was obviously my first time doing that. And I had grown up playing sports and excelled in sports. And, but it's really different when you have to actually teach somebody else how to do something that you excel at, and that you're passionate about. And it's really interesting as I say that is actually, and I've never thought about this before. That's actually a theme, like, that I can really think translates to so much of the rest of my life.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I tend to find themes with people, but
You're good.
Thank you. The coaching thing, you're right. Like, it's a totally different skill. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, who coached you that was effective in your life?
I had great coaches. Growing up, I played 3 sports in high school. I played sports in middle school as well. But was a 3-sport athlete in high school, and then a 2-sport athlete in college. And I think, one of the things that I've always said about sports, and this is something that, I have two boys who they're in college now. And one of the things that has always been really important to me is that diversity. And, like I said, I played field hockey, basketball, and softball. And what I loved about that was the diversity. It was a diversity of coaches. It was a diversity of skills and, development of different skills, literally different muscles, playing different games, literally. Being around different teams of people. That was something that was super important to me. And that was something that we really tried to, I don't know what the word is, instill maybe in our boys. Like our boys they played everything, over their almost 19 years. But I don't know that there's one coach that stands out, but I think for me, it's the diversity diversity of having many different skills, and all of that, just difference.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about this direction that you switched to after you were rejected.
Thanks so much for pointing that out. Again. Yes. So that was when I joined the corporate world. And again, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Like we talked about, I had a degree in business and psychology. And I applied to all different kinds of jobs. I remember applying to marketing jobs. And where I ended up in a job that was a training and development coordinator at this company that I ended up staying at for 25 years.
Whoa, that's a long time.
It's a really long time. Yep. So it definitely, going back to what I said, that, things do happen for a reason. Clearly I was not, my path wasn't meant to go down, staying in the special education realm. I'm so grateful for everything that 2 years gave me, including my husband, and my family. Yeah. But yeah, I spent 25 years in the corporate world, and it started out as, like I said, a training and development coordinator. And what that looked like was coordinating the training and development that we did at the organization. Pretty straightforward.
So teaching.
Yeah. So but at that time, it was definitely, I didn't start out teaching. I didn't start out coaching. It was more the coordination of, what were we offering and who was doing it. I wasn't necessarily doing it at first. And I happened upon one of the best organizations from the perspective of, for the 25 years that I was there, they were invested in, one of our corporate values was invest in our people through, training and career development. And that's what I had the benefit and the blessing of doing for 25 years. And it started out as, me literally coordinating what it looked like. And then eventually I grew in terms of, then doing the teaching, doing the coaching. And then, like I said, I, took on much more responsibility beyond just learning and development. And, really by the end of my 25 years, I think the best way to describe it was like, I was like one of the people leading our culture and what our culture looked like at our organization, and all of those different things that come into play of making an organization a great place to show up every day to work. And that included, like I said before, wellness, change management, diversity and inclusion, employee engagement, learning and development. So all of those things that really just kind of touch the employee experience. Why should you work here? And, beyond the job that you're doing, what makes this a great place to work? And that's what I had the pleasure of leading.
Who created the experience for you, if you were the one creating it for everybody else?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
Yeah. So like if you were really foundational to creating this experience for employees and making sure that they had the opportunities, how did you see yourself fitting into that same experience? Or were you outside of it because you were the one leading it?
No, I think, I understand where you're going with that. I think part of it is just due to the nature of who I am. I am a self-professed long life learner, and I'm always learning and growing in some aspect. It's interesting. I don't know that there's really ever been a time where I haven't been taking on, a new angle of something, from a like professional standpoint, in terms of like, growing skills or competencies or whatever. And so I think I was always part of that because of who I am. And, alongside of what I was creating, the environment and the conditions that I was creating for the organization, I was part of those because I eventually moved into doing the teaching and doing the coaching and doing the training. So I was always learning and growing myself. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things, you gasped when I said I was there for 25 years, but I think that's one of the things that kept me there for 25 years. My job was never the same. Like every year, whether it was our business shifting and needing to adapt to that from a culture perspective and a learning perspective and helping employees, deal with the change of the shifting business or developing new skill sets. So there is that aspect of it, or me just continuing to grow myself professionally and taking on, different responsibilities throughout those years. My job was never the same.
Yeah. And it sounds like you kept those things a priority for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you didn't just pour 100% of yourself into these other employees.
Well, yes, for a long time that was the case.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. Okay. I'm sure we'll come back to that.
It seems like there's something you're not saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I want to follow your path that you're taking me on, but I think if when we get to like, Laurie, why did you leave the corporate world? That will become a theme. And I'll explain more about the pouring into other people versus pouring into myself. Nice. And how that was something that, ultimately led me to leave the corporate world. Okay. But we'll get to that when you're ready.
Oh, okay. I love this. All right. So this whole time I'm wondering, were you on site for this corporate job or were you remote?
Yeah. For the first, I don't know, 15 years, I was on site every day.
Was that Southern New Hampshire?
No, we were living in Massachusetts at the time.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you move for the job?
No. I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry. I'm like, yes, we did. We moved. We moved to Massachusetts when I got this job.
And you had a family at that point?
No, it was just my husband and I.
Okay.
Yeah, when I started working there. So that was, that was now 28 years ago. See, I think you're just trying to get me to tell my age. Like, it keeps coming back to this. No, I'm just kidding. At the time when we moved, it was just my husband and I. We weren't married.
Okay.
And so we hadn't started our family. We hadn't gotten married yet, but we moved together to Massachusetts.
Okay.
To be in a little bit more of a convenient location for, where he was and where I was at the time. Yeah.
What was he doing?
He was actually, when we first met, he was managing a ski shop and he was still in school. Okay. I'm 9 months older than him, but he went to flight school. He went to school to be a pilot. And so he went to, just more traditional college for a couple of years and then decided he wanted to become a pilot. So when we first met, he was in flight school. So he was going to school and managing a ski shop at the time.
Were you nervous about him being a pilot?
Yes. And I think that that's part of why he's not a pilot. No, I mean, in all seriousness, yes. Yeah. And I think, he wanted to be a pilot before we met, before he was at the stage of really thinking about starting a family. And then on a really serious note, 9/11 happened. 9/11 happened when he was finishing flight school.
Okay.
And that changed the whole airline industry. That combined with, us continuing to grow together and, grow up together. It was sort of like a, I don't know, like a perfect storm of he decided that wasn't what he wanted to do for the rest of his life. So he's worked in the airline industry ever since. So he is, he's part of that industry. He's just not flying every day.
What does he do?
He works in sales.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like that's the hardest question you're probably going to ask me, what my husband does for work.
You aren't prepared for that one.
No, he sells air engines.
He sells airplane engines?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a tough industry.
If he's listening right now, he's probably cringing, like, Laurie, seriously?
I'll have to have him on and then he can explain it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now the hardest question's over.
I know. What does my husband do for work?
All right. So you guys are in Massachusetts. You are working in corporate. What was your official title?
When I started, training and development coordinator.
Okay. And at what point did you move to Littleton? How did you end up here?
Oh, I love this. I love that question. And I love this part of our journey. So we moved here 4.5 years ago. So we're relatively newbies, if you will, but also not, because my husband's family has had a house on Partridge Lake for generations. So he grew up coming here.
Okay.
His dad grew up coming here. His mom and dad are originally from the area. They grew up in Lisbon. And so I have been coming here for, again, it's like the age thing. I've been coming here for almost 30 years.
You don't have to tell me how many years.
I don't know why it keeps coming back to that. Maybe I'm having like a complex about my age.
Apparently.
Yeah, apparently. So I've been coming here, for 30 years. Our boys are just about to turn 19. We have twin boys. They've been coming here all their lives. So we officially moved here 4.5 years ago, which was a huge shift for us, but also not out of the blue, crazy, like we're just picking up and moving to some random place in New Hampshire. This was a place that, my husband's been coming his whole life, and my boys their whole life, and me a significant part of it. It was always just a beautiful, wonderful place that we visited. And then we decided 4.5 years ago to take the leap and make it our home. And we never looked back.
Did you move from Massachusetts?
Yep. We moved from Sudbury, Massachusetts. Okay. So we lived there. Ironically, when we moved to Mass, we lived in Littleton, Mass.
Oh, that's confusing.
Yeah. Yeah. So we lived there for a number of years. And then when our boys were starting kindergarten, we moved to Sudbury, Mass. So we lived there, probably 12 years or so. And we moved up here actually right before they started high school, which to some I think sounds crazy. And the first question that I get is like, oh my God, did your boys hate you? Mm-hmm. The crazy part is that, first of all, I should say, if COVID hadn't happened, we wouldn't be living here. I would not be sitting here.
Okay.
Because we didn't leave Mass because we were unhappy. We loved it. We loved Sudbury. We loved our friends. Like, we had a great life there. But I think COVID combined with my father-in-law ended up getting really sick during COVID. Okay. He ended up having glioblastoma and passed away from brain cancer in the midst of COVID.
Wow.
And so I'll use the term perfect storm again of both of those things. COVID, our routine, like we got out of our routine just like everybody did.
Yeah.
And I think it gave us an opportunity to slow down a little bit. At that point, our boys were in the thick of life. We were in the thick of life with our boys. And, I mentioned sports before, like we were constantly on the run, and like, you're just living life, and we were living a really happy life. But I think slowing down with COVID and then the passing of my father-in-law, the two of those things really gave us pause of like, holy cow, like, what do we want? And like, life is short. We knew that our boys were approaching high school, and we just started like, would we ever want to move to New Hampshire? So New Hampshire has always been our happy place. My husband and I both grew up in southern New Hampshire. My boys always considered, up here their happy place, and other places as well. But up here, there were the mountains. We have a house on the lake. Like, everything was just happy up here. And so it just all kind of happened where, ironically, I ended up meeting when my father-in-law was sick. We ended up renting in the winters up here. We wanted to be closer to him, but we didn't want to have to like stay with him. So we ended up renting. Our boys did the Franconia Ski Club. They were ski racers. And I ended up getting reconnected with a close friend from high school who worked at the White Mountain School over in Bethlehem. And he was like, oh, your boys love it up here. You should check out the White Mountain School. And I'm like, okay, well, we live in Massachusetts, and we had never considered private school. Like, it just, none of it was ever on our radar. And the summer before their freshman year of high school was when my father-in-law passed. It was also when we were like, guys, do you want to go just like check out the school to like see what it's like? Because it sounded amazing. I remember looking it up online several months earlier. So anyway, we went up. They checked out the school. They fell in love. We fell in love. And because my father-in-law had passed, we had a house to live in temporarily or long-term. We didn't really know at the time. And so we made probably the craziest life decision where we went up. It was like early August when the boys checked out the school. A week later, they applied, got accepted, and we decided to do it. Wow. Like, I always say, even if we had like a month longer, I'm not sure we'd be here. I am the ultimate planner. And like, every ounce of us moving to New Hampshire went against that ultimate planner in Laurie. But it was looking back, it was honestly the best thing that we could do. I mean, we miss Massachusetts. There's a lot I don't miss about Massachusetts. I miss our friends, immensely. But, we just decided, you know what, we've got 4 years with our boys, living under our roof, that we know they're going to be under our roof. And let's give it a shot. Yeah. So the boys were the ones that were like, all right, we're ready to do it. Are you, mom and dad? And we were like, whoa. So a lot of times you hear about families moving because of the parents, like a job or.
I'm an example of that too.
So and Jared and I both had the luxury and the blessing of being able to work remotely. Yeah. And we had been, for several years because of COVID. And you had mentioned before, like, was I remote? I was in the office for many, many years. But then even before COVID, I started to transition to, kind of being hybrid in the office and remote. So it was a really easy move from that perspective. And we just decided, like, let's try it. And at first we were like, all right, well, maybe we'll do the opposite of what we were doing. We'll come up here during the week and then we'll go back there on the weekend, which was crazy because that's what we were doing. We were renting in the winters up here. Yes. So we'd come up on the weekends, and that quickly went out the door, and we're like, okay, no, that's not going to work. And and here we are 4.5 years later, and it's been the best thing in the world.
That's amazing. And I absolutely love that you gave your sons choice.
Yeah.
That is so profound, and that helped them own that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It probably changed the whole experience. Even if it would have been exactly the same, the fact that they got to choose it.
Yeah.
Is huge.
Yeah. I mean, it really was, we joke that like, they were like, when we were, you know, trying to decide, are we going to do this? They're like, all right, well, this is like, you and Dad need to decide if you guys are coming with us, basically.
That's awesome. And now they're off to college.
They're off to college. Yeah. Yep.
So you guys have like entered this new era, right?
Yeah. We're empty nesters.
Yeah. I know that was a big thing for you in this past year, because you talked about it quite a bit on like social media.
Yeah. I mean, it was a profound shift. You know, having there are only children, you know, so having twins that are leaving for college, it's ripping the Band-Aid off all at once. You know, many families, if they have, you know, more than one child, it's like a slow, gradual leaving of the house. And for us, it was all at once. I'm happy to say it has been much better. A theme that I am really well aware of for me is the anticipation is always worse for me. The anticipation of something versus the actual event. So I was so sad leading up to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do with myself? Yeah. But then like you figure it out, just like everything else in life, right? I think it helps that they are happy. They're doing well. They love where they are. It also helps tremendously that they're together. Yeah, it does. You know, selfishly, like they were the ones that like completely decided on that themselves. My husband and I were holding our breath last spring until they made the final decision, because we weren't sure up until the very last, the last day. You know, we thought, you know, prior to that, we weren't sure that they would go to college together. Like it was 50-50. Then it started to get like a little bit more clear that was where they were leaning. Yeah. But until they made the final decision, we didn't know. And it's the best feeling in the world knowing that they're together.
That's good. Mm-hmm. So you've been spending a lot of quality time with Bennett. How is he doing?
He's great.
I know he went through some health things recently. Yeah.
So Bennett is the dog, dog, my black lab, the love of our life, besides my husband and boys. They might say that I love Bennett more, but it's not true. Bennett is great. He's a 7-year-old black lab. He did have some health. He went through some cancer treatment, a surgery last fall. We found a mast cell tumor on him that he had removed, and he's doing fantastic.
Good.
Yep. He's great.
He's so sweet.
He's such a good boy.
And you take him up to Parker Mountain Trails, right? Yeah,
every day.
That's awesome.
Every day, yeah.
Are you still afraid of bears?
Yes. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
For announcing that on the radio.
I'm a little bit afraid to.
Have you seen any of this winter?
No, but that's the beautiful thing. I
they're away.
I actually love hiking in Parker in the winter more than the summer, because I know they're not there.
They're sleeping.
Give me a -6 degree day and I'm happy. But nice. A 66 degree day, and I'm like, oh my God, where's the bear?
Where's the bear? Yeah, it's so funny. I don't remember where it was that you told me that. One of the few times we've seen each other out.
Yep.
But you had mentioned how you were scared of bears, and I was like, what? I was like, I've never seen a bear at Parker. Ever.
My husband has, and Bennett has, I think it's really funny what you just said. Like, one of the few times that we've chatted, why did that come up? Like, why did I tell you that I was afraid of bears? That seems kind of silly in retrospect.
It was really random. I don't remember what the context was, but I remember.
Hey, Amanda, how are you today? Did you know I'm afraid of bears?
I know. We must have been talking about Parker, because I think you were seeing that I was spending time up there.
Yeah.
And you must have mentioned it at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. You guys are now in Littleton. What I would love to tie in now, with your permission,
okay,
is when you made the leap from your corporate job to now being your own boss.
Yeah.
Having your own business.
Yeah. So probably, so really I think that journey starts at the beginning of COVID. I didn't realize it, but that really was sort of the start of the end, if you will. And it's really interesting. So I'll kind of bring back that theme that you mentioned of pouring into others and maybe not either pouring into myself enough or having others pour into me. Mm-hmm. And so if we kind of have that as the backdrop, when COVID hit, because of the role that I had in the organization, I just naturally kind of became a central leader during COVID. My role, because of what I was leading in the organization, learning and development, diversity and inclusion, employee engagement, like I was regularly interacting with global employees. Mm-hmm. And there were two things that happened at the start of COVID. I quickly recognized the opportunity that we had to bring our global organization together. So I started literally a week into COVID. I started this initiative called Together Thursdays, where at 11 o'clock on Thursdays, we had a session, and it kept going from a week after COVID until I left the organization. It might have kept going after I left the organization. I'm not quite sure, but that was over 3 years. And I recognized that we were thrust into, just like everybody in the world at the time that COVID hit, we were thrust into this unknown, and people were working from home who had never worked from home before. We were going through this unprecedented time. And so I started this weekly initiative called Together Thursday, where every global employee was invited to a session at 11 o'clock on Thursdays. And the very first session that we did, I taught a class on working remotely. So, okay, you've never worked remotely before. Let's talk about best practices and what that could look like. And then over the 3 years, it evolved. It evolved to I was always the host of it. Sometimes I was the host and, the trainer, teacher, facilitator teaching a particular topic. Sometimes I brought in guests where, I would, sometimes it was leaders in the organization. Sometimes it was folks from the outside, but always with the goal of connecting, making people feel not alone in that really lonely time.
Yeah.
So that was one initiative. The other initiative and this was really started at a personal level, but it had a professional impact. But I recognized really quickly during COVID that people were not okay. Mm-hmm. And I recognized that given my role, I wanted to be able to support our organization the best way that I could. And I didn't know what that looked like. And I remember at the time I posted, so this is when we were still in Sudbury, Mass. I posted on a local mom Facebook group. I think it was like Sudbury Working Moms. I said, I'm leading, or I'm one of the people leading our organization through COVID, recognizing that people are not okay, recognizing that mental health overall well-being has come to the surface for people. We were all going through something together. People who never really thought about their well-being or mental health were now like, holy cow, like what is going on? Mm-hmm. Like I'm living in this different world. And I just had this sense that there was a huge opportunity to focus on that more. And I can't say that it was more than that at the time, but I knew that I needed to make sure that I was continually learning and growing myself so that I could help our organization mm-hmm. grow and survive. Not survive, that sounds really dire, but get through, support them in the best way. So I posted on this local moms group. I was like, this is what I'm thinking. I don't know exactly what I'm looking for, but part of me like started to look into, did I want to go back to school to, be a counselor or a therapist and, get a master's in mental health? I wasn't sure that was really the avenue. And so ironically, a mom posted, have you ever heard about positive psychology? You should check out this place in New York City called the Flourishing Center. It sounds like it would fit what you're looking for. And I'd never heard about positive psychology, never heard about this place in New York, but I looked into it and quickly realized that it was exactly what I was looking for. It was what do people need? Like, what do people need? The science of positive psychology, or positive psychology, I should say, is the science of human flourishing. So it's the study of how do humans flourish and what do they need to flourish? What do they need to not just survive on a day-to-day basis? What do they need to thrive? And so I was like, oh my goodness, that sounds like exactly what I'm looking for. So at the time I was like, all right, well, do I want to go at this place in New York at the Flourishing Center? They had certification programs where you could get certified as a practitioner. They also have master's programs. UPenn has like the best, masters in positive psychology. I looked into that and I was like, you know what? I'm not sure that's the avenue that I want. I'm in the thick of it with our organization. I want tools and skills, and I want to be able to apply it immediately. So I ended up going the certification route, because the whole premise behind the Flourishing Center and every program that they offer is to make it applicable and practical to be able to implement. So, it's theory, it's research, it's learning the science, it's learning the skills, but with the aim of practicality and application. So that was when my journey into positive psychology started, but again, for a really specific purpose of supporting our organization through COVID. It was a great, couple of years. And I honestly wouldn't take back everything that I poured into the organization. And I still feel really good about everything that I did to support our people and, all of our leaders, myself included, for a while, as we were navigating COVID and in the heart of it, in the thick of it, and then coming out of it. And then I got sick. And about 3.5 years ago, so we had moved to New Hampshire at this point, I started to develop just stiffness. That was like I thought I had Lyme disease. Okay. So you mentioned Bennett, you mentioned Parker Mountain. We're there literally every day. Yeah. And my husband had Lyme disease. He had anaplasmosis, which is another tick-borne illness. And at the time I was like, oh, I must have gotten bitten by a tick. And I didn't do anything about it because I was a busy working mom, and we don't always put ourselves first. So it probably was like a good month when I was just like, it wasn't terrible, but it was just sore. And I just my body doesn't feel right. I probably ought to go and get tested for Lyme, which I eventually did. And it eventually came back negative. And I started to get worse. It wasn't just waking up and, or getting up off the couch or getting out of my chair at the end of the day from working and, being stiff. It got progressively worse in terms of what my body looked like, or not looked like, because you couldn't tell from the outside, what my body felt like. Okay. So at the time we had moved up here about a year earlier. We weren't part of a primary care yet. We were on wait lists. So I was going to the urgent care a few different times. I don't know what is wrong with me. I don't have Lyme. That came back negative. So long story short, it took about 6 months, but I finally got in to see a rheumatologist, and I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which is, if you don't know what it is, it's okay, because when I was going through this, I had no idea what rheumatoid arthritis is. Before I actually saw my rheumatologist, I had sort of self-diagnosed myself, because I was so beside myself trying to like figure out what was going on. And my first appointment with the rheumatologist, I was diagnosed. And so what rheumatoid arthritis is it's an autoimmune disease, and often brought on by stress. You have to have I don't know if this is completely accurate, but usually there's like a predisposition that you have, and clearly I had a predisposition in my body, but there needs to be some sort of activating event that triggers it. And for some people that comes out early, mid, it can come out at any age or stage of life. And it's an autoimmune disease, and what it looks like is my body was attacking itself. Yep. So, our immune system is designed to attack foreign entities and keep us healthy. Well, my body didn't have, it was healthy, but my immune system, was attacking healthy parts, thinking it wasn't healthy. That's basically the gist of what rheumatoid arthritis is. And so I was diagnosed about exactly 3 years ago today. And I tried for about 6 months to juggle it all. Had this huge job that I was doing and that I was really successful at. Like I was feeling good, moving and supporting the organization through COVID was amazing. It was a blessing, and it was an honor to be able to do that. But I also, in retrospect, realize what it was doing to me. I was always on for the organization, always on and thinking about, what does the organization need? What do the people need? How can I support them? And looking back, it absolutely, I'm convinced that it was what led me to a place of burnout of my body. And stress. Everything that I mentioned that I was doing at my organization, although it was wonderful, it was also super stressful. It was a ton of responsibility. Yeah. And it was stressful. And I've since learned the role that stress plays in autoimmune diseases. So I tried to juggle it all, big job, mom of teenage boys, wife. My husband travels a fair amount. So, just juggling all of that. And then about 6 months after my diagnosis, I wasn't getting better. And in fact, I was getting significantly worse. And just to kind of give people a sense, I think sometimes autoimmune diseases can be really, just not understood. What it looked like for me when I say I was getting worse and worse is I wasn't able to move my body when I got out of bed in the morning. So, I mentioned at the start of it, when I started to develop symptoms, I was a little stiff, when I got off the couch or chair. It got to the point where it was as though my body froze in place overnight when I was sleeping. Yeah. And I can remember, the day that I really, it pushed me over the edge of I've got to do something different. I stood up and I fell backwards into bed because my body literally couldn't move. And in the worst of it, some simple things like washing your hair or brushing your hair or brushing your teeth, those things actually either hurt tremendously because with rheumatoid arthritis, you get frozen, you get flares, and at best it hurt. At worst, I couldn't do it. Like sometimes, like my husband actually had to like help me brush my teeth. Like
Wow.
that's how crazy and bad it was.
Yeah.
And so, I decided I needed to take a medical leave from work. And that was the very best thing I ever could have done, because I knew that I wasn't getting better. And
Yeah.
in fact, you know, I'd spent 6 months actually getting worse after my diagnosis. So I took a medical leave. At first it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks. And I was like, I'll probably be back early. I don't need that much time. It turned into 13 weeks, which was what my organization, you know, gave for a medical leave of absence. And it was during that time that I did a ton of, I literally would wake up every day and be like, what do I need today? What does my body need today?
Yep.
And it started out really slow. Like it was, okay. I remember I found this guy that did, you know, morning, movement where I would like, you know, do movement with my hands or turn my neck to the side. Like it was simple stuff
Yeah.
like that, but it was almost like rebuilding my body and
Wow.
learning what my body needed. And, you know, simple things like, you know, I said, I walk with Bennett every day. I was like walking to the mailbox to try to get some movement in. And that was like a big achievement when I was in the height of, you know, the pain and the disease. So I'd wake up every day and ask myself, what does my body need? And did a ton of reflection during that time as well. Ironically, my training and all the time that I had spent in the positive psychology world with my certifications, you know, I'm a certified coach and consultant and resilience trainer and positive psychology practitioner. So I had done it all in that time. Ironically, never in a million years did I think that I would need to use that skill and all of those things on myself. But it's just so funny how life works, right? Because here I was doing this to help support the organization. And, you know, a few years later, it's coming back to how did I start to use those tools to help myself? And one of the ways was, you know, I made the decision when I was out on medical leave that I knew I couldn't go back to the corporate world. I knew that I just, you know, learned about the role that stress played. And I knew that I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back to that environment. I couldn't go back to that job. If I wanted any opportunity of, you know, getting healthier.
Yeah.
So I decided to leave the corporate world. I went back for a month just to kind of wrap everything up. And then in 2023, in September of 2023, I left and started my own business. And it's, you know, it's so interesting because I never in a million years would wish an autoimmune disease or rheumatoid arthritis on somebody. But I feel like I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. And that's crazy to say, but it was almost as though I'm sure that I didn't pay attention to a lot of signals that my body was giving me. Mm-hmm. And I think, I like to say, I think my body went extreme on...
To get your attention.
All right, Laurie.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
You're not listening to me, and you got to listen to me because we've got different things that we need to do, and this is not it. And so here I am.
There's something that you describe that I've heard quite a few of my other guests describe, and it's a knowing that can't be explained. It's just something that suddenly you know.
Yeah.
And it's a calling.
Yeah.
And it's this calling you out from whatever situation you're in to doing something totally radically different.
Yeah.
Without having a plan, you know?
Yeah.
You like to have plans.
Yeah.
That must be a really scary thing. But when you know that deeply...
Yep.
It's like undeniable. You don't need logic at that point.
Yeah. And I think that it's interesting because during the time when I was doing all of my training and certification work in positive psychology, I had certainly started to think about like, ooh, would I want to have my own business one day? But the logic blocked me from that because it was like, okay, well, Laurie, you've got a great job. Like, you know, you are doing great work. You're well respected. Like everything was quote unquote great.
Yeah.
And I'd been there for 25 years. So it was super scary to leave. Yeah. And I really think, you know, going back, I needed something profound to happen in order for me to make that shift. Because, you know, like I said, if we had had a month longer to think about moving to New Hampshire, we probably wouldn't have been here. If I hadn't been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, I don't know that I would have my own business right now. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe, but I definitely needed the clarity of I can't do this over here any longer. And I'm ready and willing to give this over here a shot to see what I can do to make myself healthier on every level.
It's a pretty profound story. We're at the top of the hour, so before we continue, I just want to remind people that you're listening to WZNC LP Bethlehem, 99.9 FM, North Country Community Radio, streaming online at nococommunityradio.org. This is Amanda McKeen. You're listening to North of Normal, and I've got Laurie Butson here. Laurie, do you mind staying a couple extra minutes? I feel like it's kind of like hard to wrap things up right now.
Yeah, of course. I'm good.
Okay, cool.
I'm good.
So, you know, we just really got to like the crux of your life here, where your body is screaming at you, hey, like, we need a break, and you're finally deciding to listen.
Yep.
And it defies logic, and you take that step anyway. Everyone has their own experience in moving into business ownership, and I've had mine. And I'm curious, in that first 6 months of launching that, what do you remember the most?
I remember, and this is still the case to this day, but it's gotten a little bit easier, I would say. But what I remember at first is how gosh darn hard it is. And what I remember, and I still tell people today, is that my business is doing work that I've been doing now for 28 years. It's not like I'm new to owning a business. I'm not new to the work that I'm doing. I'm still coaching and training and consulting and facilitating all of those things that I was doing for years. And it's not the same when, even though you're the crux and at the heart of what you're doing is the same, it's completely different when you're doing it out on your own. Like, there's so many other things that come into play. I could create a 12-week program at my organization, and I had the means and the people to put it in front of, and they knew me, they trusted me, they said, that sounds amazing, yes, let me sign up for 12 weeks to spend my time with you. Doing that same work over in my own business is a whole different world, even though it's the same work. I've got to find the people. I've got to build the relationships. I've got to build the trust. I've got to market myself. I've got to market the program. I've got to figure out, what are people willing to pay? My employees didn't have to pay to attend something.
That's right.
So that I think is probably the biggest realization, that I'm new to owning a business. I'm not new to the work that I'm doing, but the work is really different.
It is different. That's so true. I've gone through that in my way as well, and my business started around the same time as yours.
Yeah, I know.
Interesting.
We're on the solopreneur journeys.
Yeah, it is different, and I think it's even more different here in our region. Mm-hmm. It's not, if you were to start your own business in Sudbury, Massachusetts, for example.
Yep.
I'm sure there would be some differences there compared to here, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even just proximity to clients. Mm-hmm. I think an amazing shift that happened during COVID that I truly believe helps me do my job from here is how much of the world went virtual at that time. Mm-hmm. And so much of some of my work is in person and local with, when I can do that with a client. And I love that. But so much of my work, whether it's one-on-one coaching or group coaching or doing training programs and workshops for organizations, so much of that is able to be done virtually equally well. And so it's, I think that has definitely allowed me to be more successful than if I had tried to do the exact same thing 10 years ago up here.
Interesting. So what's next for you, Laurie?
What is next?
We've talked about all this history.
Yeah.
We talked about where you're at now.
Yeah, I think that, it's really interesting to see how the work that I'm doing has evolved over the 2.5 years that I've been off on my own. And I think that there's two things that are really, I love working with organizations to, support them from a well-being perspective. And that's really what the heart of positive psychology is. It's our well-being. It's, what are those components that come into play to help us thrive versus just survive. It's really interesting. One thing that I want to be sure to mention, I love the name of your show, North of Normal. Yeah, North of Normal. One of the sort of taglines within positive psychology is North of Neutral.
Nice.
And what that means is the traditional world that we're familiar with from a psychology perspective, it's focused on getting you back to neutral. It's focusing on, what is wrong and how do we get you back to being okay?
We do that in wilderness medicine as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, always get them back to normal.
Yeah.
Whatever normal means.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so a great way to understand positive psychology is we don't want to just be normal. We don't want to just be okay. We want to be better than okay. And that's that north of neutral. Let's get, let's make sure we get you to neutral. But then what do you need to be north of neutral? And so I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway,
well, I asked you what's next.
Yeah. So maybe I just knew that I wanted to get that in there and I just decided to get that in there randomly. I don't know.
I love that you just said that.
I'm sure that there's a reason that I thought it was all connecting, but what is next? There's two things that are really lighting me up. I started out my business with, working with organizations, doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, and that is continuing. But then two new areas that I am finding a ton of purpose and passion in is working with schools. And I'm working with the Littleton School District this year with the high school and middle school, and bringing well-being, bringing positive psychology into the schools for the staff, some work for the students as well. So that is something I'm really passionate about. And that wasn't necessarily, on my radar, but it definitely is more. I think is absolutely needed, to be able to support the people that are taking care of our kids every day and educating our kids. I have become really passionate about. And then the second thing is continuing the work. And this isn't work. This is my side passion project. It really isn't part of my day-to-day business, but continuing the work in the community. We're living in a loneliness epidemic, where, we need to be more connected as humans, as communities, as individuals. And we're also like, we're not well, collectively. And to be able to support and educate at a community level around those areas, and also bring awareness and attention to all of the different resources that are available. This is kind of bringing this back to where we started the conversation. So being able to support the local community from that perspective, never would I have guessed that would have been such a big passion. It's not something that is part of my job. Like I said, it's a passion project that I just want to do. And so continuing to be able to bring that to the community is really important to me.
I understand that. I do. I don't get paid to do this radio show.
Yeah.
I do it because I love it.
Exactly. And I think that's like the ultimate, I remember back, before COVID, I remember like thinking to myself, like, is this what I want to do forever? Like, I was, happy from a professional standpoint, but I think like when you really find your purpose, and it's right, you know it. And it doesn't,
you just do it.
You just do it. Yeah. Whether there's payment at the end of that or not. I'm just such a believer that what you put out into the world comes back. You don't know how it comes back, whether it's, joy, fulfillment, like you don't always know, but you know that it's what you want to be doing, and you're doing it for that reason.
Yeah, it's that inner knowing and that calling that you can't really explain.
Exactly.
Beautiful. I think that's a great way to end, don't you?
Sure. Yeah, I think so.
Thank you for being here, Laurie. I feel like I know you so much better.
Oh, good. All right.
And so does our community.
They do.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
Well, I do want to thank everyone for tuning in, and especially a little bit longer today. By listening in, you're helping keep real stories and community conversations alive. That's no small thing, and I'm so glad you're part of it. If you've got thoughts about today's episode or someone that you think would be a great guest, I'd love to hear from you. Just send me an email to amanda@clearviewadvantage.com. And if you want to catch up on past episodes or share one with a friend, you can find them anytime at clearviewadvantage.com/podcast. This has been North of Normal with Amanda McKeen and Laurie Butson today. We'll see you next Tuesday live from 10 to noon. Until then, stay grounded, stay curious, and stay a little north of normal, or neutral, as Laurie would say. Thanks again, Laurie.
Thank you, Amanda.